Hi, welcome back to another Translator Insider. We continue talking about all things related to mental health, positivity, and culture. And today we talk about something that I think is very important, and sometimes it gets you in a little bit of trouble waters, and that is culture and how culture relates to your work. So stick around. Let's go for another Translator Insider. So let's start another Translator Insider. And today we talk about culture. And obviously, if you are in this industry and if you are in any shape or form related to this industry or work with this industry, you know that it is impossible to separate culture and translation. It is impossible. They are intrinsically connected because when you do, when you translate, you need you have culture there. You need to actually take in consideration both cultures that you are working with, the source, the culture of the source text, and the culture of the target text. So, and you basically need to make that connection and make it feel culturally acceptable in the target source, so in the target language. However, you still need to pass exactly the same um, message and have exactly the same impact. And that's the beauty of being a translator, and that's the challenges that you face, because obviously, as you know, there's no direct connection, there is no direct translation, and sometimes you need to find ways of translating it, of passing the message to your target audience in a way that they will receive it and they will get exactly the same message as your source audience, without jeopardizing their culture, without being something that would be, for example, culturally unacceptable. But it's not only on your work, it's not only when you actually do your work and when you actually translate that cultural values and culture plays a part. Even on the way you conduct your business and the way you talk, the way you do things, um, may be affected by your culture, and that's normal because you are a product of that culture as well. You are inserted in a certain culture, and that influences everything you do. And, because that's your values, that's what you grow up with, etc., etc. However, sometimes different cultures have different values. I'm not saying that it's something different, that what may be acceptable in one is completely unacceptable in other, but sometimes happens that some things are not seen exactly the same way in other cultures, and that may cause a little sometimes misconceptions, sometimes a little misunderstanding about what a certain person may do. I did an article about this as well, and I decided to talk about it in the Insider, because I think this is something that is truly important. Some cultures, for example, and I need to refer to the ones that I know the most, which is the Portuguese and the Australian. So it would be an Anglo-Saxon culture and a Latin culture, so a Portuguese culture, and and the differences between them, and what sometimes it's seen as very acceptable and very productive and positive in one, and in another may seem a bit fuzzy and a bit confusing, I may say, which is in some cultures, for example, like the Portuguese and like in Latin countries, people tend to be very talkative, and they may express everything. And for them, if they express that they are extremely busy, if they do everything at once, if they multitask and they are just full of work and all of that, it may uh, give them the look that they are very professional, very busy, very successful, all these things at once. Well, obviously, if you have a lot of work, you're obviously very busy, and that's a positive thing for your business. But when you go into comments like you like to multitask and do different things at once so you don't get bored and things like that. I heard that a comment in a place, and I obviously thought it was a little inappropriate in my view. That may get you in trouble waters, because when you translate, and this is my experience, I've been doing this for more than 10 years, basically around 13, 14 years. And when you translate, you really need to be 100% in your project. You really need to understand the task at hand. You need to understand the text that you have and really delve into it. Know exactly what there is. Know the culture of that text. And then you have to make the connection to the translation, to the culture of your target, of your translation. For that, sometimes you may need to do research, you may need to do lots of things. But most of all, you need to be 100% focused on that project. My problem with that comment, and I already mentioned that on my article, is that if you going to multitask and, for example, work at 2 or 3 projects at the same time, you cut that concentration, you cut that focusing. That's my view. For example, when I'm doing a project, if my phone rings of something, distract me from what I'm doing, it really annoys me, I have to say, because I am completely into the project that I'm doing. I have read the text, I'm trying to do all this mental process of translating it, of making it culturally acceptable. Sometimes I may doing some research for a certain term to find the best option for that sentence and for that particular word. And if someone comes and talks to me, or if my phone rings, or if something else distracts me from that, you will cut that process. You will cut that mental process, and then I will have to start it over again. And sometimes that means, sometimes that means going back and redoing the entire paragraph, because you need to read the entire paragraph, you need to read what you've done. And sometimes, it's not only negative, sometimes it's even a positive, because you might have to redo the entire paragraph. You may have to reread it, and then when you reread it, you may find, oh, okay, I found a better solution here, and you actually get something better. It's not only, it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes you can get a good thing out of it, but if you do that on a regular basis, what I mean is, you never 100% in one project, you never 100% in one task. And I think that's a bad thing. So it might be culturally valuable that you show yourself as very busy. It might be cultural acceptable that you seen as someone that can work in multitasking and doing something. Well, it might work when you're doing, for example, your chores, or when you're doing something that does not require your mental function as much. However, and obviously I'm not saying that those jobs are less important. I'm just saying that, for example, it's possible that if you are let's imagine doing something physical, like, I don't know, some show, and you interrupt to do something else and then you go back. It's, you don't need to get your mental process going. You know exactly where you stopped and you can return where you were. With translation, with something as demanding as translation, in my view, you need to really get into the project and be 100% in the project. And if you have to cut that mental process several times because you're juggling with different projects at the same time, I think it will jeopardize your work. Secondly, I don't think your clients will actually appreciate that, because when they hire you, they expect exclusivity. They would expect that you are working in their project and that's it. You gave them a time frame, and they expect that within that time frame that you have given them, you are 100% working in their project. I don't think they would appreciate, that you are juggling projects. So I think this is something, it may be seen as something positive in one culture, and I know that, for example, in the Portuguese culture, you would be seen as something, oh, someone very busy, someone very successful, someone very capable. But in other cultures, you can even linger the unprofessional, which I know the comment was not made in that context, but it may seen as borderline unprofessional, and most of all can create misunderstandings, and obviously may give a different or a wrong image of the person. And in certain professions, you just it just doesn't work like that, and that's the problem. It's when you try to, and you say something because it is culturally acceptable and you want to enhance your work, you want to enhance what you do, but in the end you end up doing something opposite of that, because it may not work. It may not, and definitely, in my view, when you work in translation, multitasking does not work. It does not work to juggle projects, because you need to be focused on the project. You need to be 100% on that project. You need to give your 100% to your client, so you are able to do a job that is 100% your best. This is what I believe in. This is what I've been doing for more than 10 years, and I would not accept doing it otherwise. So I decided to talk about this today. I have written an article about it as well, because I think it is very important. And it is very important that, yes, we may express our culture. Yes, culture is important, but we also need to be mindful of differences in cultures. And we also need to be mindful that sometimes what may be culturally acceptable may not be professionally good. So that's the main message I think I want to leave for the Insider today. And that's all for today. I hope you really enjoyed this Insider. I hope it really gave you a little clue of actually what may go wrong when we emphasize things with a cultural trace that may not be very good, and why we should always be mindful of culture, and why we should always be mindful what works well and what doesn't work at all, because sometimes it just may create a little bit of a misunderstanding and uncomfortable situations that obviously do not mean anything, and it not take us anywhere, and that obviously was not what we meant. I'm pretty sure the person that made the comment did not meant by any means being unprofessional, or I don't believe the person is unprofessional at all. I just think that sometimes we get in trouble with some cultural traces, some things that, because we are inserted in a culture, and sometimes when we are talking with like a new a new person or we just met or something, it may be a little bit of nerves around, and that may exacerbate that sort of, oh, I need to show that I'm very busy, I need to show that I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and then that's when things like this may happen. So be aware of the culture, be aware of your culture, be aware of the cultures that you are working with, and definitely be aware of what works and does not work with your profession before you even say something. Because it may be something really harmless, and I think this comment was really harmless, but that can take to things and misunderstandings. I guess this is the important thing. And of course, share your thoughts. Have you ever been in a situation that you actually made a comment that you then thought, oh, well, I shouldn't have made that comment. It really looks good in my culture, but I don't think it went down well with the rest of the audience. Or maybe someone else did a comment that you thought, oh, that's really odd, it doesn't make sense to me. And you obviously thought, okay, that's culture, that's just differences in culture. Just share. It's really nice, actually. I think it is really nice, and to see these things and actually analyze them and see that what do they really mean, because in my view it also helps create an understanding between cultures, and I think that's important. And sometimes if we create that understanding, and if we understand that, okay, for that culture that's acceptable, so that's fine, you may minimize these sort of misunderstandings or these sort of problems. So share with us, and put a like on the video and subscribe the channel, so you and obviously click on the bell and you get a notification of a new insider every week. Before I go, I would like to thank you all for watching and wishing you a very good week. See you next time. Thank you very much. Bye.